Welcome to Transcendent. I'm Joe and I'm the dad.
And I'm Raya and I'm the daughter.
You know, we had a whole week between the last podcast and this podcast, and I was kind of bored and I thought maybe I ought to play the internet a little bit.
Play the internet?
Yeah, I decided to come up with something different. So I thought, I've got this theory. I'm going to check it out.
Okay.
So I ordered a chicken.
You ordered a chicken online?
Yes, I ordered a chicken online.
Okay, tell me about that.
I ordered a chicken and then I ordered an egg. I'll let you know.
We are on week 2 of the damage of conversion therapy. Such an important conversation that we had with John Paulk, a friend of the podcast. John used to be in conversion therapy himself and was one of the spokesmen for conversion therapy, telling people that you don't have to be gay any longer.
He was actually chairman of the board.
Yes, he bought the company.
Yeah, that's right.
And he was the person. And I looked to John. I went to his seminar. I really watched because it was so important, everything that he was saying, because I felt like when I was in ministry, yes, I had these urges that I knew who I wanted to be. And yes, there were people around me that were saying, I'm gay or I'm lesbian, but we believed that the Bible said that it's wrong. And I could only make sense of that if there was a way that you could change. And so as long as there were people out there that I thought were giving us hope that there's a way that you can change. God is bigger than this. God is bigger than your sexuality and bigger than how you think you are wired. And it all comes down to how you were raised. It was not how you were born. And then you can be changed. And well, if that's the case, well, that we figured that was good news. But you brought up on this podcast many times about the idea of somebody with a cleft palate. And nobody thinks that you bring somebody with a cleft palate and you just lay hands on them and they're going to get better.
No one is born with total perfection of any kind. Everybody has something. Sometimes it's a physical impairment and sometimes it's something else. But no one is the absolute perfect person. Therefore, people are born with abnormalities. People are born with things that make us different from one another. No two people are exactly alike. I use the analogy of being left-handed. Some people think that's an abnormality. But I know that this is a natural thing. I happen to be in a minority because I'm left-handed, but it is normal. I think everyone would agree about that. I feel the same way about being LGBTQ. It's normal. But because it happens to be a minority, there are people who think it isn't.
We'll actually come back to that. John answers a question that's interesting there when we asked if he thinks that he was born gay or not. And his answer might surprise you.
So with that, let's jump in with the conversation. We'll see you on the other side.
One thing I would really like to ask you about, kind of going back to the beginning of your story, because it's the part that resonates with me so much, is that struggle. I remember for myself, when I went to Love One Out, I was a closeted trans person. I didn't even know to myself. And so that's where I resonate a lot of not knowing what I was dealing with. But as I was hearing these stories, I knew that there was an aspect there that I was resonating with you, with the women that were talking about coming out of being lesbian. There was an aspect that I knew there was something there. And especially I think as I would hear the stories of ex-lesbians, I thought, I can understand why you would want to be a lesbian, because I know that I would want to if I could be.
Right.
And I knew then behind the scenes, I had a secret struggle myself with watching lesbian pornography and imagining myself in that role and not knowing how to deal with my own thing. But of course, when you're struggling with something like that, it's a lot easier to position yourself as a heterosexual male because you can hide it a lot easier until you can't. But what I really resonate with you about so much is that struggle of trying to keep it down and then failing and then coming back and working out some way to deal with it, coming and maybe praying and, God, I'm sorry, and I messed up again, and can you please forgive me, and trying to figure out what to do. Thankfully, I didn't have nearly as large of a ministry, but I definitely felt that weight. So I can only imagine when you increase that ministry, what that weight does to you holding that in that moment. What kinds of things did you do to try to reconcile that with yourself when you couldn't talk to people? What kinds of prayers did you pray, or what kinds of options did you
What time
try?
in my life are you referring to?
I think mostly the time when you were in ministry, when you were at the most prominent part as an ex-gay, but especially when you knew whatever the part came where you started to be tempted stronger and those times where you started to fail.
I'll tell you who I talked to. Other ex-gays. It's funny. While I was at the apex of my ministry, I was in a room of close friends, men and women, who were ex-gay, like me. And we looked at each other and we said to one another, this is really funny. You know, we haven't really changed, right? And they said, correct. Our lives had changed. All of us were married. We were parents. So something did change in a big way. But it was behavior based. Our behavior changed, and that can be very powerful. We lived obedient lives for the most part. But I'll never forget that day when I asked that question. And every person said, we're all in the same boat. We know that. But this is our life now.
I remember a prayer that I prayed at one point. I had 7 years in my marriage of really struggling, coming out, confessing, I'm sorry. I imagine you went through that. I'm sorry, and then the reconciling or trying to reconcile and the angry throwing things, and I thought you changed, and like you said, why can't you just follow God? And I know I came to a place for myself where I said, God, I don't know what to do anymore. If I knew how to change, I would. I've tried everything. I've tried accountability partners. I've tried having demons cast out of me. I've tried prayer, and I've tried reading the Bible more, and I've tried everything that I know how to do. I've tried journaling and everything that I know how to do. I don't have anything else left anymore. God, I would repent if I could.
What you just said is where the damage is caused.
Yeah.
That's where the damage lies. The fact that you have to do this and this and this and this and this in order to just be acceptable. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So you spend years and sometimes decades, or in others, a lifetime. I have a friend who just came out at age 75. 75, he was a bishop in the Mormon church. And when his wife died of multiple sclerosis, he finally felt like he could embrace being gay. But his whole life was spent suffering. And I think that's where so much intrinsic damage is caused. Churches, I would say, are guiltiest of all. Not parents, churches, Christian leaders, Bible school teachers, Christian counselors, the authorities, the parents are, yes, the ex-gay movement would blame the parents. It was all about development, and you're developed by your parents. And so, yes, they were the major cause of the blame. But this came from churches. We'll never forget who Jerry Falwell was. Jerry Falwell was one of the first person that started talking about homosexuality from the pulpit. And it kind of started in that when politics started melding with the church, and he was the biggest loudmouth about homosexuality. I literally, even through my years of ministry, hated that man. I hated that man. Even as a Christian ex-gay leader, I hated that man. One thing I'm going to say that I am grateful for is I do see a sea change in all of this. You know, by and large, the majority of people don't believe that gay people can change. That's the majority of Americans. They don't believe it's possible. A lot of people say, hey, I knew somebody that tried, they didn't. Or when my son went to a public university here in Oregon, and he was in Campus Crusade for Christ, and I would say, what do kids your age think about homosexuality? He goes, they don't think anything. I go, what do you mean? He goes, it's a non-starter. It's not an issue. In other words, they could care less if you're gay. I'm like, really? He goes, why do they care if you're gay? And as a matter of fact, my son's roommate was bisexual. More than half his friends were gay when he was in college. It mattered not. And there is a sea change among young people who will be the leaders, who will be the church leaders. More and more churches are being welcoming to gay people. I mean, believe it is happening. Look what the Pope did this year in saying that gay couples deserved a blessing from the Catholic Church. I mean, that would have been unheard of before. So things are changing. They are. I, for one, like you, want to be someone who helps it change further. And because the pulpit that I had, that pulpit gives me the pulpit that I have today. Had I not had that, people wouldn't listen to me. But because I was there and on such a pinnacle, people listened to me. God gave me a new story. But it's funny, I was an alcoholic starting at the age of 14, and it came and went in my life. I would go periods, years where I wouldn't drink. It took till I embraced my homosexuality, I was able to stop drinking 9 years ago.
Good for you.
But as a Christian, I couldn't stop drinking. I feel I have been able to love people deeper. I wasn't allowed to love people when I was in the church, only certain kinds of people. And when I came out, as time went by, I was able to let my true personality out, which is I'm an empath. I love people. Why? Because they're people. I have many transgender friends who are in all sorts of processes and different stages. Some have surgery, some don't. They're my dearest friends because they're people God created and He loves them.
And now you have one more.
and I love them. And it is not just the freedom to love unhindered that's real freedom on the inside.
For sure. It's too bad that the movement that was designed to be about the love of Jesus really ended up becoming, we need to make sure we're drawing sharp divisions between those that are of Jesus and those that are not. And instead you end up alienating people and alienating yourself.
Right.
I am Mark Ziemer, a listener and supporter of Transcendent. I've been a Lutheran pastor for 45 years, and oh, what a journey that was for me to understand the LGBTQIA community and what that meant. I was so not understanding and hurtful. So this podcast is incredibly important to really educate and understand and to hold relationships together. So I urge you to consider listening, of course, but also supporting. You can go to transcendent.com and click on the heart with a support button. You can give as little as $3 a month, and you can cancel at any time. Important for all of us on this journey of understanding, keeping relationships together, truly being people of love.
Some people ask me, do you think that you were born gay? You know what? It matters not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I became gay. I don't care. I could care less why or how I'm gay. I'll never know. People will ask, did God make you gay? Well, how the heck do I know? I don't know if God did this or not. I don't know. It doesn't matter. What matters is I am gay. And let's take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
And that has set me free, truly. So the guilt and the shame that I've carried is gone. I don't carry guilt and shame anymore. And I remember my friend Stephen, who I was talking about, said, if I hear you make another apology, I'm going to slap your face. You have apologized enough for a lifetime. Live your life and be happy. You can stop apologizing now. And so I really live in freedom. My 3 sons love and accept me as a gay man. If I ever get married, they said they'd stand up there with me. You know, and they were raised in that household where they knew their mom and dad were ex-gay, but they saw the truth in me. I remember a couple years ago, I said to my oldest son, I said, you know, sometimes, Timmy, I feel like I made the wrong decision. I should have stayed married in our family. And he looked at me, he goes, Dad, are you gay? I said, I am. He goes, you made the right decision. It was as simple as that, and it was conversation over.
I think sometimes our kids understand us better than we do.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. So really, that's my story.
Yeah. So now your ex-wife did not come with you. She never changed her views.
Not only did she never change her views, when Exodus eventually folded and closed some years after that, the whole movement closed because the leader of Exodus at that time admitted, really, this doesn't work. People don't change, and we're going to close our doors. It was such a bold and courageous thing this man did. He toppled his own organization. So there were a remnant of ministries and people who left and stayed true to the Exodus way of thinking. And ironically, my wife became the leader of that movement. It's called Restored Hope Network. She's the executive director of it nationally. And it's the ex-gay movement is alive and well across the country. but they've gone more underground. Part of what I'm trying to do is expose that and take it out.
Mm-hmm.
Take it out. And honestly, I'm happy to say, state by state, they're passing laws to make it illegal for a therapist to counsel a minor about changing his or her sexual orientation. The trans issue, I don't believe, is in some of those. You would know more than I. This was specifically more about treating homosexuality in a minor.
Mm-hmm.
So state by state, it is illegal to do that, and a therapist can have their license yanked. Most recently, I did a series of stories of my life. I had never been able to tell the story of my life unless I was sitting in front of a reporter, and then they would change it and edit it. And I never in my whole life was able to tell my story coming out of my own mouth. So a couple months ago, I went to LA. We spent 2 days, long days, and I told my entire story, 60 years of my life. I'm 61 now. And I got to tell it my way. I told the truth. And it is now broken up into 45 segments, and it's available on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and my story is out there. Over 20,000 people have listened to it. I go into great detail, and I take people through it, and it's wonderful to
And
listen.
what's your TikTok name?
It's called John Paulk Official.
Okay. And you're the same, I think, on YouTube as well. That's where I watch you, is
It's John Paulk Official no matter where. Instagram as well.
I'm so grateful to have you here, and especially just because of how much I resonate with what you've gone through. You have gone through publicly what I went through privately, and I am grateful to you for speaking out your truth now. I'm sorry that you had to go through it so publicly. It's really good to have you here to be a voice for bringing healing.
I truly appreciate that. Truly.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
That was certainly a moving interview with John, and your story certainly, Raya, added a lot to it. And the fact that you had such a great connection between the two of you. And I think it was actually helpful for both of you to hear that.
He really helped. I'm really, really grateful to be able to talk with him. You know, I reached out to him on Facebook. I just thought one day, because I've seen him kind of from afar. I don't think I met him in person when we went to the seminar, although I may have, I don't remember, but there were a lot of people there. But after the fact, I thought, I know everything that he's been through, and I know how hard it was for me to go through it. I should just reach out to him and see how he's doing. And I've managed to find him on Facebook, and I sent him a friend request. We started chatting, and actually I said, hey, I'd like to talk to you more. And then I talked to him, I think it was 4 years later, and said, by the way, I do this podcast now. Sorry, I haven't talked to you in a little bit. And so we got to talking now, and now I would consider him a very close friend of this podcast.
And that's wonderful. And we really appreciate the fact that you made that connection for our listeners. We've got 3 strong podcasts now out there, this being the 3rd one from John. And I've got some other great news for you. We've got some other terrific podcasts coming up this year yet. And it's pretty exciting for us. We can't wait to share those with you.
You now know how to find John on social media and watch all those videos. Those are really, really amazing. A lot of people have asked, what's an easy way for me to find Transcendent? We have tried a number of times, and I would try to tell Siri or Alexa or any of those, play Transcendent podcast, and it always hears the word transcendent. But what we discovered is if you say play Transcendent LGBTQ podcast, It's going to come up for you. That's your easiest way to find this podcast and to let a friend know to check this out. If you got something out of this interview or any of the others that we've had here, we would really appreciate it if you would pass it on.
And the other easy way to find our podcast is know that it's coming up very soon. As a matter of fact, we hope we'll see you again Monday. I ordered an egg. One egg.
Really?
Yeah.
Which came first?
Oh, that's what I was going to tell you. My line is, oh, yeah. Okay, my line is, I'll tell you later. So I ordered a chicken, I ordered an egg. I'll tell you later, because everybody comes up with, you get it?
Yeah, well, of course I get it.